Now to Los Angeles, where there's new testimony in the hit-and-run murder case of rap mogul Suge Knight. Bone Sloan, one of the men struck by Suge Knight outside of a Compton burger stand in January, took the witness stand on Monday. And while his testimony did offer more information about the encounter, which left his friend Terry Carter dead, he refused to identify Knight as the man behind the wheel at the time of the hit and run, saying that he does not want to be a, quote, snitch. Joining me now to discuss is entertainment attorney John Burns. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Alona. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to see you this morning. So if you don't mind, first, just take us back to that day in January when this deadly incident occurred. And what do we know about the original cause for the confrontation and what's being argued now in court?
Yeah, we know a number of different things. Mr. Knight's contending that he was ambushed and he's acting in self-defense when he hit Mr. Carter and Mr. Sloan with his vehicle, ultimately killing Mr. Carter. And then the prosecution's claim that he acted with an intent to kill. So obviously they're going back and forth with that with these pretrial motions. And
how important is Sloan's testimony to the overall case here, given the other evidence that's out there against Suge Knight?
Well, Mr. Sloan's testimony, it's huge, but it's not huge in the fact that he's failing to identify Suge Knight as a driver, because we all know when Suge Knight and his camp has already acknowledged that he was driving the vehicle. It's really huge from a prosecutorial standpoint because the prosecution was relying on Mr. Sloan as a very key witness and hopefully helping to make their case. But clearly, based upon the statements he's made thus far, that's not going to be the case.
And, the judge even went so far as to say that the witness was being deceptive when he was quoting memory troubles here. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously he was being somewhat deceptive, but at the end of the day, you cannot make someone testify a certain way. So the court might acknowledge him being deceptive, but again, they cannot make him say one thing or another.
Now, we can't forget, too, that Suge Knight has quite a rap sheet. So how will his prior convictions come into play in this case?
Well, I mean, they're going to come into play to some degree, but I think at this juncture, they're going to look at this individual incident as an individual incident and not bring any other past incidents up as any type of evidence. Because right here, you have a pretty specific encounter where you have video evidence of the incident unfolding. So for a murder and attempted murder case, I mean, I think they have the evidence and the circumstantial evidence they need. But at the end of the day, a murder conviction is very, very difficult because you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you already have eyewitnesses who will not identify Suge Knight as the driver, I think it's really, really difficult for the prosecution to ultimately get a conviction here.
And what about for the defense? If you are defending someone like Suge Knight, what's your strategy in a case like this?
I think your strategy is what they're doing right now. And they have Mr. Sloan that's really helping to really effectuate their strategy. They're arguing self-defense. They're arguing that he was ambushed by a number of different individuals. And you can see in the video, and Mr. Sloan acknowledged that he was actually punching Mr. Knight through the driver's side window of the vehicle. So that alone really can justify kind of having an aggressive action and speeding off. And again, he's also claiming that he was suffering some vision troubles as well. So that compounded upon each other really helps to support his defense.
Now, this was also a preliminary hearing just to see whether or not there's enough evidence for Knight to stand trial for murder, attempted murder, and hit and run charges. So what happens next in this process?
Yeah, so what happens next is the court and the judge is going to evaluate the evidence that has been presented before them in this preliminary hearing. And the judge will ultimately make a determination whether or not he sees it fit to move forward with the trial, in essence, if there's a triable fact here. Because at the end of the day, the prosecution has the burden to prove that Mr. Knight acted with an intent to murder. So that's a very, very difficult burden. So the judge is really analyzing the evidence and examining the evidence that the prosecution presented to see if there's a triable fact here.